So, never thought I'd talk about Waianae in this channel specifically, but I just felt like I had to say something about this. Whenever we hear about Waianae typically in the news, it's usually related to some sort of crime or violence. And if you do a Google search of Waianae, you'll see what I mean. You got car accidents, you have carjacking, you have violence, you have assault, you have kidnapping. It just seems to be related. And at a recent town hall meeting with the mayor of Honolulu, the residents of Waianae expressed their concerns about what's going on in their community, specifically related to crime and violence. And what the mayor said kind of surprised me.
I've been out here now multiple times on neighborhood watch walks. Why isn't the community doing more? The police can't do everything.
That's right, sir.
So why don't you guys deal with it?
So the solution for crime and violence in Waianae is for its citizens to deal with it themselves. And I want to unpack this a little bit more, because does no one else have a problem with this? Or is it just me? Or is it just because it's Waianae? And sure, maybe some people may say it's none of my business because I didn't grow up in 96792. I grew up in 96744. But if this is the direction that we're going, where each community is supposed to take care of its own crime, well, that's a very interesting direction that we're heading. Now, to be fair, I wanted to make sure that that comment was not taken out of context. And when you see it in print, it definitely could be taken out of context. But when you watch the video, I think what is being implied, again, I'm just observing just what I interpret, is that the community should be more responsible for what's going on in the community. And I think this makes absolutely perfect sense if we're talking about things like, let's say, litter, right? So if there's litter in a community, there's trash on the ground, the community can go in there and pick it up and take care of it themselves. And in that sense, I think that works. But the thing is, this isn't like litter or cleaning up the park or painting over graffiti. We're talking about crimes here. Now, the first thing that came to mind was the analogy of school bullying. Now, I've never been bullied in school, despite being a little on the smaller side. Bullies just never really messed with me. But imagine if a kid was being bullied at school and the teacher or the principal told them, oh, you just deal with it. I mean, really, how would you expect a child who's being bullied to deal with it? Do they fight back? Do they just continue to ignore it? And on top of that, two very important things. Number one, if the kid defends themselves or fights back, are they going to be free of any consequences, disciplinary consequences, because of their actions, because they're trying to take care of it? And second, would the teacher or principal provide some sort of long-term protection so that there's no retaliation in the short term and the long term from that bully and or their friends? I mean, if you can't guarantee that, then the child, if they do try to protect themselves, they're gonna have to deal with being harassed, being bullied from that person's friends until they're removed, right? And so when it comes to a community like Waianae, who is it now expected to deal with it themselves, how exactly are they supposed to deal with it? Are they supposed to defend themselves or be more proactive? And if they take any actions, are they gonna be immune from any disciplinary action? And I think more importantly, if they do act, and let's say they take care of it in their own way and people go to jail, people go to prison, are those people and their families going to be protected from retaliation from that particular person's family or friends? Because you know, it's a small community, right? Everybody knows everybody, people know where people live. And if you were the cause of someone or a family member going to jail, getting busted, I would think that family is going to be pretty upset. And that puts you and your family at risk. Not just you, but your kids. You know, your spouse, your parents. If they all live in that community, they're all gonna be at risk. And so what protections are there for them? And so under those circumstances, how is a community supposed to deal with it themselves? I mean, it's very challenging, and I hope that people can see that. And the second thing about this that I wanna bring up is this idea of equity. And I don't wanna talk about equity in the political sense, because it's a very political term, I just want to talk about it in its most common sense definition. You know, people being treated as fairly as possible. I know it's hard to be fair across the board, but to at least have the opportunity, or at least the perceived notion or treatment of being fair, I think we can at least get to that point. Because personally, I don't know if it's a good idea if communities solely take care of what's going on in their community for everything. I mean, littering, sure. I think a community can step in there and clean up and just create a culture of, hey, we don't accept this. I mean, you look at a place like Japan, it's just non-existent. When it comes to things like homelessness, well, maybe, I mean, a community can take care of its own. I mean, look at places like Waimanalo, even like Waianae, they have unique situations there, but they still need outside assistance. But then you talk about violent crime, sorry, I'm not gonna sign up for that. That's why we have the police. But okay, let's say though that this is the policy, that each community is supposed to take care of it themselves, whatever that it may be, in their own way, right? Because we all have different resources, we all have different ways, different communities. So we all take care of it. So I don't necessarily agree with that policy, but let's just say that is the policy, because what applies to Waianae in that sense, they gotta take care of their own, I assume would apply island-wide. Can you imagine if this was applied to, I don't know, let's say communities like Manoa or Kahala, Aina Haina, Hawaii Kai, Kailua? Can you imagine if they were told, oh, you guys just gotta deal with all your problems, whatever problems you guys just gotta deal with it. I mean, can you imagine the reaction from those citizens if they were told that? Because if communities like Waianae are being asked to do that, I think in all fairness, other communities like Hawaii Kai should also be asked to do that same thing, just if we're talking about fairness. And so I understand that this entire conversation at the town hall revolved around crime and the police station not given enough resources, not being built out, not having enough staff. I get that. But maybe the takeaway from this whole discussion is that, at least if we're talking about Waianae, right? Maybe that community, instead of just taking care of it on their own, maybe they can start working closer with law enforcement, because they know the community. And if they partner closer with that police station out in Waianae, maybe they can get things done. And I think it's gonna be very important for that police station, those officers in that area, to build that trust with those residents. I mean, you want to be able to talk freely with them. And I think the community members would want to feel like they have trust and faith in the people that are supposed to protect them. And so in that sense, I think it's a good idea that the community would start working closely with law enforcement. It kind of reminds me of these programs that you hear about sometimes in schools, where it's like a troubled school or like a troubled area, and they put police officers in the school, and not to crack down on the kids or to bust the kids, but just to be there and the kids see them. And I think by just having that law enforcement officer presence in the schools, maybe they become more approachable. Now, I always had this soft spot for Waianae. I know, kind of a weird thing to say, but as an adult now, I really don't go out to Waianae all that often. I mean, it's pretty far away from town, and the traffic is at times very bad. And of course, it has a reputation. But for me, places like Waianae serve as a reminder for what Hawaii is about. I've been reading about C.S. Lewis, and in the book, it talks about this idea of membership, and how the strength of a membership is not that everyone is the same or that it's homogenous. It's actually built upon the fact that groups of people or members are different, and yet the group somehow functions with all of these different types of people, and that's where it gains its strength. In other words, it's the group's ability to accept the differences of others that makes it strong. And I liken that to places like Waianae or Waimanalo, or some of the more rural places. That Hawaii is not just, or Oahu for that matter, is not just town. It's not just Hawaii Kai, it's not just Aiea Pro City, it's not just Salt Lake, it's not just Mililani, it's all of us. And to even step back further, Hawaii is not just Oahu. And places like Waianae challenge my ideology about the closeness that we really have in Hawaii, because we love to say that, oh yeah, we're one state, you know, we're from Hawaii, we're really proud. But there's a lot of smaller communities, and sometimes we just sort of operate in these silos. And so how close are we really? For those of us that live in town or in East Oahu, when was the last time we went out to the west side, past Kapolei, past the water park, right? When was the last time we went out to Nanakuli, Makakilo, Makaha, Waianae? Now, I'm not suggesting that we all go out there and bother them. I'm just saying that let's not forget them. Hawaii operates as a small and big place. It's small because, you know, everybody knows everybody, and land-wise, we don't have a lot of land. There's only so many places you can go on a series of islands. But it's also a very big place in the sense that people are sometimes operating in these silos, and maybe we don't take the time to drive 40 minutes out west with no traffic, of course, but 40 miles out west, 40 minutes with no traffic. Maybe we don't take the time to go out to other places like that, that we're so comfortable in town, or we're so comfortable in East Honolulu, or we're so comfortable out on the windward side that we never actually venture out. And in that sense, Oahu, Hawaii, it's big, but I just want to make sure that we don't forget about places like this, and that what affects one community really affects us all. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and aloha.
Hello.